Mesechta. You're not in it. Here we go. Okay. Mesechta Zevachim, the Pei Tesam at Beis. 2 lines. The last line. We learned before that Avina but Avshila said a murray kachim kalin, the fats that's left over from the kachim kalin. We said Sheyatsu went outside the Azar, which is not allowed to go before even spraying the blood, but it went out before spraying the blood. So you would think, hey, it's before the spraying the blood, it's not so bad. So Ravina said it is, even though it's kachim kalin, it shouldn't be considered as holy until after you spray the blood. He says, no, there is some kind of holiness already, even before the spraying of the blood, and if you take it out, it's going to be possible. So if you want to live in Tanoim, let us say that the Abida Bar Avshila's words is really a machlekes of Tanoim. The last. A mudei kachim kalim, here the same case, the fats of kachim kalim, sheyatsu that left the azar lefnei sukkos adam before spraying the blood. Rabbi Lezer says there's no din of meila. Din of meila means that you're not allowed to have enough from something that belongs to hekdesh. Well, we say there's no din of meila because it's before the spraying of the blood. It's not considered as holy. That's what Rabbi Lezer says. The din of pigul is that if somebody, by any of the avodas, accepting the blood or bringing the blood to Mizbeach or spraying the blood, at that time he had in mind to spray it after the Zman, the time allotted for it, it's pigul. But that's only providing that the whole carbon was done in the right way. But here we say, since he took out the fats outside the Azar before, so it's already messed up. And so you need the whole procedure to be good, and the only psul would be his thought that he had more than a lot of time. And the same thing with Noisa. It's not going to be Noisa. Noisa means that the whole procedure was done right, but he let it go for longer. And then there a lot of time. It's not Noisa because it was already possible before. And the same thing, the tummy, it doesn't have an effect unless it's a real carbon. Rabbi Akiva says, Rabbi Akiva says, no, there is a din me'ilah, and the spraying of the blood that happened after he took it out of the Azara, once he sprays the blood, it has a din of kedusha. Rabbi Akiva on Tzadik Amar Aleph. Rabbi Akiva, the second line, Rabbi Akiva says that yes, din me'ilah does affect it, and because after the spraying of the blood, it has a din kedusha. And you chay on it because of pigul, noisa, and tameh. My labi the hadavla ailinu pligi. Is that not talking about that after they took it out of the azara, they brought it back inside, and then they sprayed the blood? That's where the argument is, if it has the kedusha or not. The Masal of Mifsli Yosef, Rabbi Lezer says no. Once it was taken out, it's a goner. Even if you bring it back in, you spray the blood, it's not going to help. Masal of Mifsli Yosef. Rabbi Akiva says no. It didn't become possible by taking it out, and the zika of the dam does help to make it holy. So it's a machlokes. Papa, no. I argue completely with what Ravina says. Everybody is in agreement. If it went out and you brought it back in, then everybody holds that it'll have kedusha, that the zrika will help. Even though Ravina said before, once you take it out, it's a goner. So it's totally, our Papa argues totally with Ravina.
More than that, he says that everybody's in agreement.
Is in agreement, that's right. Then it's going to be good. And the Muri Kachim Kalim only become puzzle when it's outside before the Zika. Here they're arguing when the Imurim was outside the Hazara, will the Zika help even while it's outside? And then this is what they're arguing about. Zika will not help for something that's outside the Hazara. Rabbi Akiva holds that the spraying will help even while it's outside the Hazara. How could you say your Papa was saying that the whole argument was when the fats was outside the Hazara? I'm going to show you. He says just the opposite. Papa said that the Isnu he says when it's outside the Hazara, everybody agrees that the Zrika will not help. So how do you say the whole there was a machlekes outside the Hazara and one person held it'll help? Okay. Says the or I mean, he was the one that said, "Well, it's not possible." With the halinu legavay pligi, he said the Pharisees, the whole machlekes was inside. Says the Gemara that machlekes, that he said the machlekes was it was inside. Hanimili gabay shtei lechem the lav guvin zivcha. They were talking about the two breads that were brought together with the carbon. So the two breads, is not part of the carbon itself. So since it's not part of the carbon itself, the only way, of course, everybody's going to agree, if the bread was outside, the zika is not going to help it become holy, because the bread is not the guf carbon. The guf the zitchel, but the murim, the fats itself, which is part of the carbon itself, but the isnum abrei pligi. They argue if even while it's outside, will the zika help? You're right about the shtei alechem, it won't help, because shtei alechem is not the carbon itself, it has zero kedusha. It has to be inside the azar in order to help. But the murim of the carbon itself, when it's outside, there's still kedusha. That's where they're arguing if the zika helps or not. We learn when it comes to birds and menachos is made out of flour and oil. Yeah. Which carbon comes first, birds or the menachos? So the Gemara said birds. It should be just the opposite. Menachos kaidmes. A mincha, flour and oil should come first. Because they are brought as a tzibur mincha sa'im l'mashal. We bring the second day of Pesach. What? To make mutter, the new crop, the new wheat. Or you have the same by shvuis, the shtei alechem, this is for the tzibur, is brought for the shvuis. But when it comes to eifos, it's only for a yachid. Says the Gemara, nevertheless, the Gemara says, when it comes to something with blood, that has blood in it, that's more chesed. Blood, because the Gemara says the blood is the life of the bird, and that's what really represents kapara. So that's more chesed. Minchas chayta, a mincha, flour and water that's brought for a sin, comes before minchas nedava. But minchas nedava,
before when? In terms of when?
If you have a choice of two minchas, you have one that you promised the nedava, and then you have a mincha for a sin that you committed. So which one comes first? He says a minchas chayta. Minchas nedava should come first. Because it comes with oil and spices, versus a minchas chayta comes with zero. So as you want to, minchas chayta is still more chashuv. It comes from a sin, adifa, so it's more chesed than chaperes, that it's able to forgive for a sin. The Gemara has the shayla. In the base measure, minchas soita. Minchas soita is for a woman who is suspected by the husband that she told him he warned her, don't be alone with so and so, and she was caught alone. So then halach is that we give it to drink the meya soita to be mavar if she. That's called the minchas soita, to see if she really committed a sin or not. Minchas nedava, eizmen chedemes. Which one comes first? Says you want minchas nedava kadma. That the mincha nedava comes first. She came to Hashem Eloveina. Maybe because minchas nedava should come first because it has together with it oil and spices. Versus soita doesn't. It's just flour and water. It's not even it's not the regular flour made out of wheat. It's made out of barley. It's like or perhaps mechaseda kadma, or mechaseda should come first. Maybe because it's coming to clarify a sin. So it's like something. It's like a minchas says you want to Toshma coming to answer a raya from our Mishnah. Minchas chayta. It says a minchas chayta comes before a nedava because minchas chayta comes to forgive. Minchas chayta who the kadma minchas nedava a minchas chayta like it says minchas chayta somebody a mincha for a sinner comes before minchas nedava. He doesn't mention minchas chayta, so probably a minchas chayta does not come before a minchas nedava. In fact, the Imam Ikatani did the Mishnah say that the reason for minchas chayta comes before it doesn't say because it forgives. It says it comes because of a sin. That's how we learned in the Mishnah. So include minchas chayta in minchas chayta because it's also coming because of a sin. To clarify, she sinned. Tashma said, "You want to come?" And I'll bring another ayah. from a brisa. It says zu kaidams lezu. It says this mincha comes before this one. Zu ba min hachitin, because this one comes from wheat. Zu ba min haseir, and this one comes from barley. Which mincha comes from barley? Minchas seita. So my love is that's the only one. Yeah. So is it then not? Minchas Nadava comes before Minchas Seita because it says Chitin comes before Seirin. So we have a right. Minchas Nadava comes first. It says Gemara Loi. That's not the Kavanah. Minchas Chayta. He's not saying Minchas Nadava. He's saying Minchas Chayta that came from Chitin because the Minchas Chayta also comes from Chitin. It doesn't have to be Minchas Nadava. It's not because Dr. Nadava. It can be Chayta and also come from wheat, and it comes that comes before Minchas Seita. So the Gemara Taina is typically. So I could have learned this reason from I could have learned this from a different reason. The Minchas Chayta, Mechaperes, and Minchas Seita doesn't forgive. Why do you have to say that Minchas Chayta comes before Minchas Seita? Because Minchas Chayta comes from wheat and Minchas Seita comes from barley. You could have said Minchas Chayta forgives and Minchas Seita is not there to forgive. Elamai, only what? He says Minchas Nadava. Obviously, we're not talking about that Minchas Chayta because you could have used a different reason. So we're talking about Minchas Nadava. Says the Gemara, technically, I could have learned the Zu to Una Shem Lavena, the Zu Ain't to Shem Lavena. He says, why would I say it's going on a Minchas Nadava? And say the reason why Minchas Nadava comes first, it's made out of wheat, versus Seita is made out of barley. I could have used a different reason. I could have said Minchas Nadava comes with a lot of luxuries, Shemen or Lavaina, versus a Minchas Seita is naked, it doesn't come with anything.
Right.
So the same way you asked on Chayta that you could have said a different reason, you could have said the same thing with Minchas Nadava. Ella Chat Matei time of Natid. He says, obviously, the Braisa said one reason out of the two, and you can't prove either way if you're talking about Minchas Chayta or you're talking about Minchas Nadava. So you have no proof. We learned in the Mishnah Chata Sa'ib Kaidam as a Chata Sa'ib comes before Eila Sa'ib. How do we know that the Chatas comes before the Eila? They're both birds. It says, you want to tell me about it? We learned in the Braisa said by Kabbalah Sa'ib. It says, Hikriv as Asher Chatas Rishaina. For the Chatas, that's the one that you mark up first. What does the pasuk come to teach us with the word Rishaina? Didn't mean to say that. Obviously, it's coming to tell us that you sacrifice the Chatas first. Because afterwards it says in the pasuk, since it says that the Sheni is the Oila, so I already know that the Chatas is the Rishaina. Why do you have to say Rishaina? Only this is a Banav, meaning this is the father of all places, the whole Chates. That it comes, every Chatas comes before Eilah. Whether it's a Chatas Seif or Eilah Seif, whether it's a Chatas Behema before Eilah Behema, even if it's a Eif that's a Chatas, and the Eilah is a Behema, which is way more Chashuv, the Chatas of the bird, this little peewee of a bird, will come before this the big animal, which is a Eilah. Says the Gemara. Gemara concludes, Hilkach, therefore, Chatas Eilah comes before Eilah. That's Hasheni Yasa Eilah, and the Sheni is Chatas Behema, the Eilah Behema, Midirab Bachama. He says, Chatas Eilah before Eilah, we learn out from the word, that's Hasheni. Why do you have to say? So it says the second one is the Eilah, and Chatz Behema comes before Eilah Behema, like we said before in the previous blot. It says V'asei Esa Echad Chatas. It says, and then it says V'asa Echad Eilah, and so too Chatz Eilah Behema. How do we know that a Chatas, which is a bird, that comes before Eilah, which is a Behema? He says Mizeh Banav. From this Banav that says by Eifes, it says V'Hasheni Yasala, even though they already said that the first one, it says the word Rishaina already. Obviously, to teach us that by every type of a Chatas versus a Eilah, the Chatas will come before the Eilah, even if the Chatas consists only of an Eilah, no matter what it is. Tashma, come in here and I'll bring you a contradiction from a Braisa. Anywhere where Behema the Eifes was exchanged, meaning that the Iker Chiyuv was a Chatas Behema, and Ani didn't have money to buy the Behema. So what does he bring instead? He brings one in Chatas and one Oila.
Right.
Why does he bring a Chatas and Oila? Because by Behema there's leftovers for the, well, if it's for the Kahanim or for the Malabatim. But over here, when it comes to Eif, there's nothing left over. So he brings one as a Oila that should go all to Hashem. And the Chatas is eaten all by the Kahanim. So it really corresponds to both. So what do we say over there? Chatas, Kedamas Leilas Eif. The Chatas comes first. The Khan, by a Yeledes, that the Eilas Behema got exchanged for Eilas Eif. So a woman who is wealthy, who gives birth, has to really bring a sheep for a Eilah and a bird for a Chatas. But if she doesn't have, so she brings two birds, one for Eilah, one for a Chatas. So it says, Eilah Kedamas. The Eilah comes before the Chatas. So here you see the page. Eilah comes before the Chatas. And then he brings you another reason. Kol Makim Shabbat. Any place where a carbon comes to be Mechapa Alachet, Chatas Kedemes. The Chatas comes before Eilah. The Khan, but by Yeledes, where the carbon is not coming to forgive on a sin for this woman, rather it's only going to be Mater to eat Kachim and to enter into the Beis HaMikdash. Eilah Kedemes. That's why the Eilah comes first. The third reason, the Chol Makim Sheshnayim, where there are two Kabbanis Ha'eif, which is Chatas and Eilah. So Boyim Tachas Chatas, Chatas Kedemes. Wherever you have two Kabbanis Eif, a Chatas and Eilah, meaning when he's poor, he's bringing it, instead of which carbon is he bringing it? He's bringing it for the Chatas. So since the main thing is the Chatas, so the Chatas comes first. The Kamba by the Yeledes, where the two Eifs, the Echad, the Chatas, the Eilah. The Eilas Eif is coming instead of the Behema, but the Chatas Eif is not coming instead of the Behema. So even by Shidduch, the Yeledes brings a Eif, by a woman who's wealthy. What kind of karbanis would she bring? For the Chatas, she brings just a bird. But for the Eilah, she brings a sheep. So therefore, Eilah Kedames, because a Behema comes before a Eif. Okay? That's the third reason. Rabbi says, the reason why the Pasuk wrote first Eilah and then Chatas, it's only to read, not that you should bring the Eilah before. The Pasuk wrote the Eilah Yeledes only that it should be read in the Torah first, but not to sacrifice it first. The Chatas comes first. That's how he answers it. So Gemara is a stira from additional verse. Tashma coming here. It says cows come before rams. Rams come before sheep. Sheep come before goats. My love, the Chag. Is it then not talking about the kabbanis that we bring on the Musafim of Chag HaSukkos? Every day of the Shiv Shmei of Chag HaSukkos.
The goat before birth.
Oh, we're going to get to that.
Okay.
So it says, every day they brought, it says, Eilim Ukvasim, it says, Sir Echad Lachatos, all these minim that were brought. Okay. So the Braisa is talking about the Musafim, and the Seir were the Chatas, and nevertheless, Seir, what was the Seirim? The goats. And they were the Chatas. And nevertheless, what came first? The cows, the rams, the sheep. Those were Eilis, and they came before the Seirim. So you see, Eilah comes before Chatas. So it's Gemara Loi, L'Nadava. That Braisa is talking about by others Nadava from different animals that they came together in the Beis HaMikdash, and he tells you the order in the Davis, if it's different animals, which minim come first. So the Gemara says that the cows come before the rams, because they have more libations. When you're dealing with parim, how many libations were there? I don't know if he brings it here. I think it was Shleisha Yesayim La Par, 3 Yesayim. Okay, so that's why there was more libations. Eilim come before Kvasim, because by the Kvasim, It was Elam had more. Let's see if he brings it down. La'ayol is Shnei Asaynim, right? For Ayol was 2 Asaynim versus Siddim was Isan Nechot. So Kvasim comes before Siddim, Shekin Nesabu, and Kvasim. I'm sorry, that's Elam come before Kvasim. Sheep come before Seir. Shekin Nesabu, Bahaktaras Aliyah. Seirim come first. Before the goats come before the sheep, because the goats, the tail, there's more of it being burnt on the mizbeach than the kvasim. So the Gemara asks a steer. It says Tashma come in here. I'll ask you a steer. Par. It says the par chatas of the Kohen Mashiach who paskin erroneously the Kohen Gadol and people follow Kohen Lapar Helam Dav Shal Tzibur. That comes before the Sanhedrin, who paskin erroneously, that they bring a par helam dav shal tzibur. So the par kohen Mashiach comes first. Par helam dav shal tzibur, the par helam dav shal tzibur, which is a chatas, of course. The Sanhedrin paskin erroneously comes kohen lepar, comes before the par that they bring, that the tzibur brings on shiggas avitz kechavim, which is a oila. Par, which is okay, the par that the part that the tzibur brought for following in the serving idols, that's a oila. Par la'oila shemavim tzibur al shigas eva avitz yechavim comes before seidei avitz yechavim, which comes before seidei, which is a chatos for avitz yechavim.
Which is what, Avodah Zarah?
Which is avitz zara. So you have a par, which is the oila that the tzibur brings for shigas avitz yechavim, which comes before the seidei avitz yechavim, which is a chatos for the sin of avitz yechavim. So there was a par. They brought a oila. A par is a oila for the avitz yechavim, and they brought also a chatos.
Sometimes this came first.
Oh, that's the kashrut. You always say chatos comes first. Here you see the oila comes first. The par avitz yechavim shel tzibur oilahu. Even though the par of avitz yechavim is a oila. Well, Sidi Avitz Kechavim is a chatas, and what do you say comes first? The par comes before the chatas. The oila comes before the chatas. So the Gemara answers, "Wait, Moreisha. Look, I'll bring a knife from the ratio of the pot. Why you ask me from the sefer? I'll bring a knife from the ratio. It says par helam dav shal tzibur. The par helam dav shal tzibur, which is a chatas. That means that Sanhedrin paskin erroneously. Kohen lapar avitz yechavim comes before the par of avitz yechavim of the tzibur, which is the oila. So you see from the ratio, the chatas comes before the oila. So he says, but the following kabbalah, that's all coming, all kabbalahs of par and par of the same meaning. So yeah, chatas come, the chatas come, chatas. If it's the same mean, then you say chatas comes first. But what are we talking about over here? One was a par and one was a soyer. Soyer was the chatas. The par was oila. Ashkechon oila the kadmon chatas. You find that when the oila consists of a more chashuv of behema, and the seir the chatas is a less, you see that the oila comes first. And the Gemara Mari that in Meir in the West, they said in the name of Rabbi Mari, Chatos Avedis Yechavim, that's written in the Torah, Chas Aleph. There, when you look in the Torah, the word Chatos, it's Usir, Izim, Echad, Lechatos. The word Chatos is written without a Aleph. So it's Exeris HaKosiv, when you're dealing with the Seir, which is the Chatos, and the Oila is the par, that the Oila comes first because it's Exeris HaKosiv. Ravina says kamishpat ksibu. By the par oil or sira chatas, it says for us kol aida par ben baka after it said this kamishpat. And the word kamishpat teaches us, implies that the order of the kabbanis should follow the order that the Torah says, which it says that the oila par should come before the sira chatas. It says now that you came to this one because of it says the word mishpat. Afilu tema part of the chag nami. We should say also benegay to the part of the chag. Kimishpatim over there it's written Kimishpatim ksibu. By the Muslim chag hasukis, the order of the Hakrava should be exactly like it's written in the Pasha, right? It should be Parim Einam Ukvasim, and then Sirich Chatos, which is written last. That's what he asked. So we should, which is maybe that's the halacha. He says if you're following the way it's written, even at the beginning, Chatos should. If you look in the order of the pasuk, the last one is Chatos. Maybe Chatos should be last. Bailu, the Gemara had a shayla. Chatos oif oilas behema. The Chatos was a oif, and the oila is a behema. Umaisa, and you have a couple nice behema. Let me just. Bailu, the Gemara has the shayla. Chatos oif oilas behema umaisa. Ezman koyden. You have Chatos oif, which is not so chashuv. Then you have oilas behema, which is more chashuv. Umaisa. And Maisa Behema. Which one comes first? This is really a very hard one to understand. Look, if you're going to say Chatas, you said you have a Binyanab. You said, oh, Chatas, we have a pasuk. No matter what it is, it comes first. Yeah? Says, well, that's impossible because Ika Maisa the Kodim. We said by my Korban Maisa Behema, that's the only one that comes before a Chatas. We know, so Maisa, and we're dealing, there's a Maisa Behema here. Lig the Maisa, should you put Maisa Behema first? He says that's impossible. Because you Oilas Behema, you have a Oila Behema, the Kadma Lei. Oila Behema comes before Maisa Behema. So it's a vicious circle. Chatas comes only before Oila. But Maisa comes before Oila, Maisa Behema. It's the only one that comes before Oilas Chatas. But a Chatas comes even before Oilas Behema. But the problem is you can't be Makiv Chatas Ha'oid first, because Maisa Behema comes before Chatas Ha'oid. But you can't be Makiv Maisa Behema first, because Oilas Behema comes before Maisa Behema. So which way, what happens? Take them, Oilas Behema, Ika Chatas Ha'oid, the Kadmon Lei. You have the Chatas Ha'oid that comes first. And the Gemara Hachat Hagimo here in Babel, they explain it. Since it's impossible, so we'll start off Min Zevach Odi. First will be Maisa Behema, because we said Maisa Behema, since it's a Behema, only by Maisa Behema do we say that comes before Chatas Ha'oid. So we bring that first. And then we go to the regular Seder, Chatas Ha'oid, and then Oilas Behema. But in Eretz Yisrael they said, since it's Exeris Aklasu, that Chatas Ha'oid comes before Oilas Behema. So even though it's a Min Zavach, Ayla, but Oilas Behema v'Chatas Ha'oid, he says, bring the Chatas Ha'oid, which is more cheshvet than the Oilas Behema, first, because Oilas Behema is greater than Maisa, it's kachim kachim. V'ag b'hata m'Maisa. And he says, "V'igbi Ois l'mayla m'Maisa." To bring it before Maisa, meaning the chshivas of Maisa is min zevach becomes bottled because of Chatas Ha'oid. The chshivas, okay. The chshivas of Maisa Behema, which has been zevach, becomes bottled and neged Chatas Ha'oid. Chatas Ha'oid is very chashuv. Okay. You have to let him learn a little bit, yeah. So over here we learn out that so we concluded you're right. Maisa Behema should come before Chatas, okay. But he says when the Chatas comes with the Oila, so the Chatas is the most cheshus. If it's chashva over the Oila, so automatically it's mevatel the Maisa
because
because.
line and they say who has a Chatas, who has an Oila, and then they take people from the line.
Or it could be even one person. He has a Chatas Oif, he has Oilas Behema, and he has Maisa Behema. Usually Maisa Behema would go before Chatas Oif. But the problem here is you're dealing with Chatas Oif and Oila. Oila is supposed to come before the Chatas. So we're going to be mevatel that Maisa Behema that comes before the Chatas Oif, and we're going to say, hey, we're dealing with an Oila here, and Chatas Oif comes before the Oila. We're going to go the order where that really Oila should be before. It really is. It's you're not the you don't take down the Kedusha lower. You can't let the oil of the oil go under the Maisa. So therefore you do Chatas Ha'oid, then oil, and then the Maisa.
Regardless of what
regardless if Maisa Behema is supposed to come before Chatas Ha'oid, because oil is going to be degraded, and that we're not going to allow. What we'll do? One Mishnah can we do? Kol hachatois shebetayra koitmas. All the chatois in the Torah come first before Hashamis. Chutz me Hasham Mitzayra, except for Hasham Mitzayra, that you sacrifice it before the Chatas. So Chatois come before Hashamis, but Hasham Mitzayra, the Chatas comes first. Mipnei Shuba al Hechsher, because the Hasham Mitzayra is come to be Machshir the Mitzayra, to be able to eat the kachim, to be able to enter the Beis Hamikdash. So therefore, it's a very chashuv asham, which that asham makes that person tahor. That's why that comes before the chatas. Kol hashames, boy ahamur shabatera boy bnei shtayim. All the hashames have to be two in the age already in the second year. It has to be 2 years. Uboy bekesef shkolim, and they have to be minimum 2 shkolim. Chutz b'Hasham Nazir b'Hasham Mitzvah, except Asham Nazir and Asham Mitzvah. Here he brings down a Gzeir Shava. Hasham Me'iles has to be worth 2 slayim. Asham Toli b'Hasham Gzeiles have a Gzeir Shava. It says the same word be'erkecha. Okay, and he says, and by Hasham Me'iles it says. Which were the two Hasham Nazir and Hasham Mitzvah? Let's go straight to Hasham Mitzvah, which is in the first year. It doesn't say the word El, and it doesn't have to be worth 2 slayim. The other ones, well, I learned that with a Gzeir Shava that has to be 2 years old, and it has to be 2 shkalim. Except for Hasham Nazir and Hasham Mitzvah, there we don't have the Gzeir Shava. And they're 1 year old. Shem boim b'nei shnasim the first year. The ein boim b'kesef shkolim. They don't have to be worth 2 shkolim. Says the Mishnah Vayta, Keshem shekoidmin b'hakavasam. Just like the karbonis that we have, according to the chshidus, whichever one is more chashav comes first. Koidmin b'achilasam. So too, when it comes to eating it, we go according to the chashav or what. Not. Shlomim shel emesh. What's if you have a shlomim that's from yesterday? You sacrificed it yesterday. Ushlomim shel hayoim, and you have a shlomim of today. Which one comes first? Shel emesh. The one from yesterday, koidmin, comes first for consuming, for eating it. L'shel hayoim before today's. What's if he has shlomim shel emesh, a shlomim from the day before, the chatas v'asham shel hayoim, and a chatas v'asham of the day. Now, normally a chatzah asham of the day should come, if they're both in the same day, it comes before shlamim. But you have the shlamim from yesterday. So he says, shlamim shal emesh koidmin. The shlamim from yesterday, from the day before, comes first, even though it's less chashuv, because it's going to be a zilzal. It's going to cheapen and embarrass. If you leave it out, it'll get ruined. Those are the words of Rabbeinu, Chatois, Kaidanis, Mepnei Kachim. I don't care if the shlamim is from yesterday. Chatos comes first. It's kachim. Shlamim is kachim kalim. Bekula, all the kabbanis are eaten. That are eaten. Yeah, akan and ashoyin l'shanis b'achilasim. They can eat it any way they want. Lachlam b'tzluyin, shlukim. They can eat it roasted, overcooked, v'shalim, or cooked the normal way with laseis, l'sektavlei, and they can place in it spice, tavlei chulin, even the tavlei truma, even the spices that belong to truma. Divrei Rabbi Shimon, those are the words of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Meir Eima, lo yitin l'seichei tavlei truma. Do not place in it the spices of truma. Shelo yavi es hatruma l'dei psul. Because if chas v'sholem, the truma is noisa, so the truma is going to become possible because of noisa. So that's why we don't add truma, because we don't want the truma to come to absorb. The truma that's absorbed in it.